Margarete Schultz, originally designated for the hospitality facility in Stuttgart, later worked as a file clerk for military government. Her personal diary, discovered in university archives decades later, recorded, "Today, I processed requisition forms for Captain Anderson. He apologized when our hands accidentally touched while exchanging papers. This small courtesy, impossible to fake, reveals something fundamental about American society that contradicts everything we were told. These men were raised differently than we imagined." American attitudes toward women gradually revealed deeper cultural differences. German women encountered occupiers who addressed them as ma'am or miss, who stood when they entered rooms, who avoided profanity in their presence. These behaviors, automatic and unremarkable to Americans, represented profound departures from both military expectations and Nazi gender ideologies. Through thousands of daily interactions, German women who had prepared for exploitation instead experienced behavioral standards that reflected different foundational values about human dignity, gradually undermining years of propaganda about American moral inferiority. September 1945. Helga Weber stood at the entrance of the American PX store in Frankfurt, checking identification cards of military personnel. 4 months earlier, she'd been listed as a comfort woman for the anticipated American arrival. Now employed by the occupation authorities at 84 marks weekly, she observed daily interactions that systematically dismantled her previous worldview. "Each morning, I watch American soldiers purchase toothpaste, soap, and chocolate bars to give German children," she noted in a letter to her sister. "These small kindnesses from supposed barbarians force me to question everything we were told." The psychological transformation occurred systematically across the American occupation zone. Dr. Anna Müller, conducting interviews for the emerging denazification program, documented consistent patterns among the 217 women she interviewed who had been previously designated for comfort services. Her preliminary findings, dated October 1945, noted, "Subject women express profound cognitive dissonance. Their preparation for systematic exploitation by American forces, followed by actual experiences of protection and respect, has created accelerated re-evaluation of Nazi ideological frameworks." Military government surveys conducted in November 1945 revealed dramatic shifts in German civilian attitudes toward American forces. In communities where hospitality facilities had been prepared, approval ratings for American military conduct averaged 73%, compared to 41% in communities without such preparation. The contrast between expected and actual American behavior created more powerful psychological impact than formal re-education programs. Major James Patterson's December 1945 analysis concluded, "The most effective denazification occurs when German civilians personally experience the contradiction between Nazi propaganda and American reality." Former comfort women frequently became cultural bridges between occupation forces and local communities. Records from military government detachments show that approximately 1,840 women initially designated for sexual services were later employed as translators, office workers, or service staff by American forces. Their unique perspective, having prepared for the worst and experienced unexpected respect, made them particularly effective interpreters of American intentions to suspicious German communities. Margaret Hoffmann, initially selected for the hospitality facility in Munich, became secretary to Colonel William Roberts by October 1945. Her daily letters to her mother documented this transformation. "When I translate the Colonel's directives about food distribution or rebuilding schools, I realize these Americans are nothing like we were told. They are concerned with fairness and rules, with rebuilding rather than punishing. This contradicts everything the party taught us about American chaos and moral decay." The psychological journey from expected exploitation to experienced respect fundamentally undermined Nazi racial hierarchy. Women who had been told Americans were racially inferior encountered military efficiency that surpassed German experience. Those who expected moral depravity instead found soldiers refusing improper advantages. Those prepared for chaos discovered systematic organization. Each contradiction between expectation and reality dismantled another pillar of Nazi ideology. In December 1945, when non-fraternization policies were partially relaxed, German communities observed American soldiers' conduct under less restrictive conditions. Military police records show that disciplinary violations increased only 8.2%, significantly below projected rates. Captain Michael Williams noted in his year-end report, German civilians expressed surprise that American discipline remains largely intact despite policy changes. Their expectation that restraint was merely strategic has proven incorrect, suggesting deeper character attributes than they anticipated. Interviews conducted by emerging German democratic newspapers captured this transformational journey. Süddeutsche Zeitung published a series titled New Understanding in early 1946, featuring anonymous testimonials from women who had expected to serve as comfort women. A representative account stated, "I was selected because I spoke some English, told to prepare for continuous exploitation. Instead, I was protected, then employed, then respected." This journey from expected victim to valued person contains the entire story of how we were deceived about Americans. These personal transformations, multiplied across thousands of women and their family networks, contributed significantly to the psychological groundwork for democratic reconstruction in the American zone, creating receptiveness to democratic values that contradicted expectations formed during 12 years of Nazi indoctrination. July 1946. The small church in Heidelberg was filled with unusual wedding guests. American soldiers in dress uniforms sat alongside German families as Margaret Schmidt married Lieutenant James Wilson. The bride had initially been designated for the town's hospitality facility 15 months earlier. The groom had been among the officers who ordered that facility closed and its women protected. Their marriage represented just one of approximately 14,000 unions between American personnel and German women that would occur between 1945 and 1946-1949, each contradicting Nazi predictions of American racial contempt. These marriages formed the most visible legacy of an unexpected psychological transformation. The German women who had prepared for exploitation instead experienced protection, then employment, then personal respect, and finally, for some, genuine partnership. The journey from anticipated victim to equal spouse contained the entire narrative of post-war German-American reconciliation in microcosm. Each wedding announced in Stars and Stripes newspaper represented another complete reversal of Nazi propaganda. The women who had been selected for comfort services carried their transformative experiences into influential positions throughout emerging West German society. Elizabeth Müller, originally listed in Frankfurt, became translator for military government in 1946, then served the German Foreign Office from 1952 to 1976, helping shape diplomatic relations with America. Helga Weber, initially selected in Mannheim, later managed the first American-style supermarket in Baden-Württemberg in 1952. Records from Occupation Administration show that approximately 23% of German women employed by military government during 1945 to 1949 had initially been designated for comfort services, their unexpected journey from exploitation to responsibility tracking the broader German transition from dictatorship to democracy. Statistical analysis reveals the profound reversal of expectations. In April 1945, German authorities had prepared 1,214 women for sexual exploitation by American forces in southwestern Germany alone. By December 1950, military government records show that 271 of these women had married Americans, 847 had worked for occupation authorities, and 116 had emigrated to the United States. Of those remaining in Germany, 76% reported in follow-up surveys that their experiences with American forces had completely transformed their understanding of democracy and human dignity. The legacy continued through tangible policy developments. When West Germany established its new military in 1955, American advisors emphasized policies protecting civilian populations during operations. General James Williams, who had commanded occupation forces in Heidelberg, noted in his memoirs, "The German officers I advised in the 1950s were obsessed with establishing ethical standards and behavioral codes that contrasted with Nazi-era practices. Many explicitly referenced American occupation conduct as their model. This influence extended beyond military structures into civilian-military relationships throughout the Cold War decades. The most profound legacy emerged in reformed German gender relations. Women who had expected sexual exploitation by American occupiers instead encountered behavioral standards that valued female dignity. This contrast highlighted aspects of Nazi gender ideology that had normalized exploitation. Sociologist Maria Schneider's 1963 study, Gender Relations in Post-War Germany, documented how American occupation influenced post-war expectations. Female respondents who directly interacted with American forces consistently report higher standards for male behavior and increased personal autonomy expectations compared to those without such exposure. When American military bases became permanent features in West Germany during the Cold War, the historical memory of initial occupation conduct established foundations for community relations. German communities that had prepared hospitality facilities in 1945 instead developed housing programs, cultural exchanges, and integrated recreation facilities by the 1960s. The German-American Friendship Weeks, initiated in 1958 and continuing annually thereafter, often featured speakers who had witnessed the initial occupation period and could testify to the unexpected American protection rather than exploitation. The transformation from expected violation to experienced respect represents history's quiet counterpart to more documented post-war developments. While economic rebuilding and political restructuring dominated historical narratives, this psychological journey from fear to partnership laid essential foundations for German-American alliance. What began with German women expecting the worst from American soldiers evolved into Western Europe's most stable security partnership. Their story reminds us that genuine alliance begins not with treaties, but with unexpected human dignity experienced in moments when exploitation would have been possible. The German comfort girls, who were shocked when American soldiers refused to touch them, became witnesses to democratic values, implemented not through proclamations, but through daily interactions that systematically contradicted everything Nazi Germany had taught them about their supposed enemies. April 1945. For the women selected in Kleinsteinbach and throughout Baden-Württemberg, the approaching American forces represented a terrifying unknown. Emma Kay, a 24-year-old shop clerk interviewed decades later, recalled being summoned to the town hall. The mayor wouldn't meet our eyes when he explained our new duties. He called it necessary sacrifice for the community. We were told American soldiers would demand these services regardless, and organized facilities would prevent random assaults. The German expectation of systematic sexual exploitation by American forces represented the final desperate projection of a regime that had itself institutionalized such practices. Within days, these women would confront an entirely different American reality, one that would fundamentally challenge everything Nazi Germany had taught them about their enemies. What began as preparation for exploitation would become an unexpected education in democratic values and human dignity. April 8, 1945. Lieutenant Robert Feldman of the 63rd Infantry Division stood in the doorway of the Kleinsteinbach municipal guesthouse, confusion evident beneath his steel helmet. The young officer from Minneapolis faced 20 German women arranged in a receiving line, wearing their finest remaining clothes, faces carefully made up with precious cosmetics. The town mayor, holding a bottle of schnapps and 7 small glasses on a silver tray, stepped forward with rehearsed formality. "Welcome, American officers. These women are at your disposal," he announced in halting English practiced for this moment. Lieutenant Feldman's translator, a Jewish German émigré who had fled to America in 1938, reddened as he provided translation. The lieutenant's response was immediate and definitive. "Tell him this is unacceptable. These women are to return home immediately." According to military records filed later that day, Feldman placed the building under guard with explicit orders. No military personnel permitted entry, no exceptions. Similar scenes occurred across southwestern Germany during the first weeks of American occupation. In Heidelberg, on April 4th, Captain William Harrison confronted city officials who presented hospitality services. His official report states, "Informed Germans that any soldier engaging with these women would face court-martial. Ordered immediate disbanding of facility." In Pforzheim, Major David Reynolds not only rejected the arranged women, but established a field kitchen that provided them with K-rations before arranging transportation home. The American response stemmed from specific military directives. On September 29, 1944, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force had issued General Order 2A prohibiting fraternization with German nationals, specifically emphasizing prevention of sexual contact. Violations carried severe penalties, reduction in rank, forfeiture of pay, or confinement up to 1 year. These policies reflected both strategic concerns about venereal disease, which had sidelined 606,000 soldiers worldwide between 1942 and 1945, and deeper moral considerations about occupation conduct. The German women's reactions to American refusal ranged from relief to profound confusion. Maria S., then 19, later recalled in documented testimony, "We expected the worst, had prepared ourselves mentally for repeated violation. When the Americans declined, we didn't understand. Were we not attractive enough? Was this some cruel psychological tactic? The women of Kleinsteinbach waited 3 hours under guard before military police arranged for their dispersal, each receiving 2 chocolate bars, and transportation authorization, allowing return home past curfew. For American forces, these encounters created unexpected administrative challenges. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Reynolds, medical officer for the 63rd Division, recorded treating 16 soldiers in April 1945 for injuries sustained while restraining other Americans who attempted unauthorized entry to designated comfort facilities. His reports indicate these incidents primarily involved soldiers who had consumed captured German alcohol. Division records show 7 field-grade courts-martial resulting from such violations, with penalties averaging 4 months confinement. German civilian witnesses repeatedly documented their disbelief at the systematic American refusal of arranged sexual services. Hans Müller, the Burgermeister of Eppingen, wrote in his April 1945 diary, "The Americans have posted guards at the women's facility they rejected. Their military police arrested 3 of their own soldiers who attempted to gain entry after drinking. This disciplinary control contradicts everything we were told to expect." As American occupation solidified across southwestern Germany, a pattern emerged that directly contradicted Nazi propaganda. Local German officials who had carefully prepared for American sexual exploitation instead encountered military discipline enforcing respect for German civilians. This unexpected American restraint created a profound cognitive dissonance that would systematically undermine years of Nazi indoctrination. By May 1945, American occupation forces had encountered and dismantled organized hospitality facilities in 216 German communities. Military government detachments documented consistent patterns across Bavaria, Baden-Württemberg, and the Rhineland. Colonel James Peterson of the Provost Marshal's Office compiled the comprehensive report, Organized Prostitution in Occupied Germany, dated June 12, 1945. The 28-page document detailed American responses to these facilities, noting, "In all cases, American commands rejected these arrangements and implemented protective measures for involved women. The American approach contrasted sharply with other Allied forces. Soviet troops in Eastern Germany had no prohibitions against fraternization. British forces maintained stricter non-fraternization policies in theory, but enforcement varied widely by unit. American occupation directives, however, were implemented with remarkable consistency. U.S. Army records show that between April and December 1945, 5,204 soldiers faced disciplinary action for fraternization violations, with 741 courts-martial specifically related to sexual misconduct with German civilians. Captain Michael Williams, appointed to oversee civilian affairs in Mannheim, established procedures that became standard throughout the American zone. His directive, issued April 27, 1945, ordered, "All women previously designated for comfort services shall receive equivalent food rations as other civilians. Special identification papers shall be issued permitting free movement. Protection details will be assigned as needed." These measures recognized that women selected for these facilities often faced community stigmatization. Military chaplains played unexpected roles in this process. Captain William O'Malley, Catholic chaplain with the 4th Infantry Division, documented conducting group discussions with soldiers about moral conduct during occupation. His reports indicate addressing 2,741 soldiers in May 1945 alone. Protestant chaplain Robert Thornton similarly recorded holding 38 discussion sessions reaching approximately 3,400 troops. These religious leaders emphasized themes of respect and self-discipline, reinforcing official military policy with moral authority. American military police implemented specific preventative measures. Jeep patrols increased around former hospitality sites. Checkpoints monitored soldier movements after dark. Mandatory sign-out procedures were established for off-duty personnel. The Army's preventive medicine units distributed 8.7 million informational pamphlets about venereal disease risks and moral conduct during May to July 1945. Military theaters showed the orientation film Your Conduct in Germany before regular features, reaching an estimated 1.2 million soldiers. First Lieutenant David Cohen, assigned to military government in Stuttgart, recorded implementing a novel solution to redirect soldier recreation. His May 1945 report states, "Converted former Nazi Party headquarters into servicemen's club. Facilities include library, game rooms, letter-writing stations, and American food service. Attendance averages 437 soldiers daily, significantly reducing town incidents." This model was replicated across the American zone, with 122 similar facilities established by August. German observers noted the effectiveness of American preventative measures. Dr. Klaus Wagner, health officer for the Heidelberg district, wrote in his June 1945 assessment, "Contrary to our expectations and preparations, American forces have maintained strict discipline regarding sexual matters. Their prophylactic approach through recreation, education, and enforcement has proven more effective than the regulated prostitution system previously employed by German military." The contrast between German expectations and American reality created widespread cognitive dissonance. Emma Schneider, who had been designated for comfort services in Freiburg, later testified, "We were prepared for systematic exploitation. Instead, we received protection, food rations, and respectful treatment. This contradicted everything we had been told about Americans, forcing us to question what else might have been lies." This pattern of reversed expectations occurred throughout the American occupation zone, systematically dismantling years of Nazi propaganda about American moral character. June 1945. Elizabeth Hoffman sat across from Captain Thomas Williams in the Heidelberg Military Government Office, translating documents from German to English. 3 months earlier, she had been listed for comfort services in anticipation of American occupation. Now employed as a civilian clerk at 72 marks weekly, she observed American soldiers methodically rebuilding the administrative systems of occupied Germany. Captain Williams carried photographs of his wife and 2 young daughters in Milwaukee, displaying them prominently on his desk. In his wallet, 37 additional family photos documented birthdays, Christmas celebrations, and family picnics, tangible connections to a normal life that Nazi propaganda had denied Americans possessed. Across the American occupation zone, German women discovered unexpected aspects of American culture through direct interaction. The U.S. Army's Why We Fight educational program, originally designed for American troops, was adapted for translator training. Approximately 1,800 German civilian employees, 63% female, participated in these sessions by August 1945. The curriculum included explanations of American family structures, religious practices, educational systems, and social norms, comprehensive cultural context that contradicted years of Nazi characterizations.